Good evening, friends, and welcome to another edition of Crime Time with Duty Ron and Ed Wallace. This is day 16 of the Nancy Guthrie abduction investigation. Day 16, Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos clears the entire Guthrie family. Now, he was pretty specific and seemed like he was making a statement, Ed, that was coming from not an executive who runs the entire county's law enforcement agency. It seemed almost like he was defending the family. Your thoughts on that statement that we all read just a couple of hours ago? It came out on X.
You know, it's amazing because he went on this media blitz the other day and, you know, he kept saying to all these people, well, nobody's ruled in, nobody's ruled out. But then he does this. And how did we get to this conclusion definitively? Especially after, I mean, obviously, you know, they had elimination DNA. So maybe the DNA from the glove and the DNA from the house didn't match anybody in the family. But still, I mean, that's a great leap forward during this juncture of the investigation to say that.
Yeah, I agree, Ed. I mean, look, we're not going to hear anything as it pertains to the investigation from the FBI. They never, unless they need us, unless they need the public, the FBI is never going to put out, information pertaining to the case. Especially, this one's clear, that one's clear, because until the bad guy's in cuffs and charged, it's really not prudent to put out that type of message. And this message was a little different because it almost seemed like he was scolding the media. He was telling people, let's listen to it. Hold on, let's go, and we'll come back to the audience. Let us know what you think in the chat about this Twitter X message. And if you haven't seen it, let us know you haven't seen it. We'll show it to you.
16 days into this investigation, the Pima County Sheriff this afternoon is officially clearing the Guthrie family of all suspicion. Very important development. We just got it a few minutes ago. Police hope DNA testing as well on gloves may deliver authorities, a name, date of birth, address on a possible suspect tied to Nancy's disappearance. At least that is the hope today. But on that news, our senior national correspondent, Brian Enton, is back reporting live from Tucson. So there you go. The sheriff clears the family, Brian.
Yeah, we just got this statement in, Connell, within just the last couple of minutes. So let me read you the full statement because it's quite descriptive here. We haven't heard the sheriff go this far before on this topic. We've asked him about it before. But this is from Sheriff Nanos, the Pima County Sheriff. He says, to be clear, the Guthrie family, to include all siblings and spouses, has been cleared as possible suspects in this case. The family has been nothing but cooperative and gracious and are victims in this case. To suggest otherwise is not only wrong, it is cruel. The Guthrie family are victims, plain and simple. Please, I am begging you, the media, to honor your profession and report with some sense of compassion and professionalism. So it doesn't appear he's leaving any wiggle room here, Connell, saying that they have been cleared as possible suspects, including all siblings and spouses. So it's a pretty big development because, again, we've asked about this before at press conferences, and he sort of alluded to this, but then other times has said, look, no one's been cleared. Everybody's a person of interest at this point. But now he is going as far as to say that everyone in the family has been cleared.
I want to add to it, Ed. I'll add us back on just for a second. I have about 6 Sheriff Nanos interviews from recently from the Pima County Sheriff's Department, recent as 2 days ago. And he, exactly what Brian said, he said nobody in this case has been cleared. And so to have that turn, as you stated, maybe there's information that we don't know about that, through, blood samples or DNA or however they do it, the swabs. We don't know what they asked the family to give up, but I'm sure the family gave up whatever they had to give up or whatever was asked of them. But it just seems a bit premature. And also the please and I'm begging you, you don't usually hear that from executives who run medium-sized police departments. You don't hear that.
Nope. So that's not normally done.
Here,
All
Connell.
right, that's really interesting, and it adds, or it's in concert with the kind of DNA testing that we're still waiting on, right? The gloves and everything else.
It is, and you have to imagine that everybody, probably in the family and in the inner circle at this point, has been DNA swabbed, and I say that because remember they found DNA in Nancy's house, and they have said that it's not Nancy's and it's not anyone in the family or anyone in her inner circle, which would mean that they have everybody's DNA. So I think DNA is the big factor here that we're going to have to keep an eye on in the next 24 to 48 hours, because we've got the DNA from the glove that they're looking into. And then we've got all these swabs that are happening, not just with the family and friends, but you'd have to imagine these people that they've been questioning are also being swabbed. So that's how they're going to start cross-referencing here and try to figure out who they're going to remain interested in, Connell.
Yeah, here's a great comment. Amy says, Duty Run, shouldn't the family have been cleared before 15 days? The way this investigation took off from day one with the Pima County Sheriff's releasing the crime scene and fumbling and letting people like Brian Enton, who is a news reporter, and if given the opportunity, he's going to go and knock on doors. That's what they do. This is their job. I'm sure he didn't know that he was going to stumble across fresh blood or blood from 2 nights prior. And I'm sure he was shocked about it. I had a text conversation with him and I didn't get a chance to ask him. But when he joins us, I'm certainly going to ask Brian Enton, were you shocked and surprised that you saw blood? And I guarantee you he's going to say, hell yeah. So, the families, in answer to the question, there's no set day or, 2 weeks into it. If they're doing a deep dive into the family, they're looking at financials, they're looking at possible motives, they're looking at to see if anybody's in deep financial problems. And it takes a long time to do it. Ed, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead with your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's unreasonable. You're going to have to do a deep dive on all these family members. Now, how many assets or how many detectives do they have that can do this work? You're going to have to do a LexisNexis on every member. You're going to have to get bank records. You're going to have to get financial records. You're going to have to get insurance records. You're going to have to get all of this background material and go through it with a fine-tooth comb to see if you can find a motive for a family member to have done something nefarious here.
Right.
And so that takes a lot of time and a lot of manpower. Do they have that manpower, or was this delegated to the FBI, or was it a combination? And so I don't think 15 days is unreasonable. I've seen it take far longer.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
It depends on the cooperation of the financial institutions and so forth and so on.
Right. And how deep they have to go into this, like you said, looking into all different types of possibilities. So the crime scene, although was processed according to Pima County Sheriff's Department, there was nothing to it to hold that crime scene. And I keep alluding back to a very famous case that is in recent past, which is the quadruple murders in Idaho. They held that crime scene for months and months and months. Remember, they finally gave it back, and then I think the university bought it back, and then they tore it down, and we were outraged by that. I mean, if you're eventually going to make an arrest, again, you have to have that scene preserved, and to have people trampling all over it and gawking or looking, and reporters have a job to do. It's not a good look, and it definitely didn't need to happen. They should have put it like they have right now. Darren Porcher, retired NYPD lieutenant, told us, Ron, there's a marked police vehicle in the driveway back then. Yeah, well, that should have been there from day one, and I'll stand to that till the end.
100%.
Huge mistake.
Huge. Just the last couple of minutes. So let me read you the full statement because it's quite descriptive here. We haven't heard the sheriff go this far before on this topic, and we've asked him about it before. But this is from Sheriff Nanos, the Pima County Sheriff. He says, to be clear, the Guthrie family, to include all siblings and spouses, has been cleared as possible suspects in this case. The family has been nothing but cooperative and gracious and are victims in this case. To suggest otherwise is not only wrong, It is cruel. The Guthrie family are victims, plain and simple. Please, I am begging you, the media, to honor your profession and report with some sense of compassion and professionalism. So it doesn't appear he's leaving any wiggle room here, Connell, saying that they have been cleared as possible suspects, including all siblings and spouses. So it's a pretty big development because, again, we've asked about this before at press conferences, and he sort of alluded to this, but then other times has said, look, no one's been cleared. Everybody's a person of interest at this point. But now he is going as far as to say that everyone in the family has been cleared. Connell?
All right, that's really interesting, and it adds, or it's in concert with the kind of DNA testing that we're still waiting on, right? The gloves and everything else.
It is, and you have to imagine that everybody, probably in the family and in the inner circle at this point, has been DNA swabbed, and I say that because remember, they found DNA in Nancy's house, and they have said that it's not Nancy's and it's not anyone in the family or anyone in her inner circle, which would mean that they have everybody's DNA. So I think DNA is the big factor here that we're going to have to keep an eye on in the next 24 to 48 hours, because we've got the DNA from the glove that they're looking into. And then we've got all these swabs that are happening, not just with the family and friends, but you'd have to imagine these people that they've been questioning are also being swabbed. So that's how they're going to start cross-referencing here and try to.
And while we have that, Brian, talking about the swabbing, I know you know this better than anybody else. How long should a buccal swab, however you want to pronounce it, how long should it take for that swab, providing, obviously, we know now, does he send those out to Florida as well?
Yeah, he's sending everything to Florida. So if you're taking elimination buccal swabs from the family, from UPS, the pool cleaners, the maintenance personnel for the gardens, everybody that he's getting these elimination, plus he's getting the suspects, Carlos family, the 4 people that were detained the other day, they're getting swabs from all these people and shipping them off to Florida. Florida is generating profiles, and then Florida must be also checking those profiles they develop from the buccal swabs against the suspect DNA profile from the house. Now, I understand they finished the profile for an unknown male from the glove, and they're waiting on quality assurance, quality control, QA/QC testing before the FBI will be given that information to put into CODIS.
Yeah.
I also heard, again, I looked it up several times today to make sure, heard it from the sheriff's own mouth that the material that generated a DNA profile from the house was put into CODIS with no hit.
There you have it. Little Patty, I just started speaking about that in the beginning of the live stream. If you want to just scroll back, I let a mouthful out about having the police let the crime scene, releasing it, and not putting a cruiser. And I'll put it full screen. See, there's the police cruiser right there. That's from today. Ed, I know we talked briefly, and I don't want to go off topic here, but I do believe that this is sliding glass doors that lead to the primary suite in this home, because most primaries will be facing out towards the pool, and this is probably it right here. And as you see, there's a patio, brick, looks like a brick wall around it. I don't know how tall that wall is, but and then over here as well. I was pointing with my pointer on the other screen that nobody could see, but
not having seen a floor plan for the place, there's a fireplace that's associated with the 2 windows in the front of the house and that patio. There appears to be at least 2 sliding doors there to the patio.
Nonetheless, this is a point of entrance.
Well, what I would guess from my background is that the one would be from a living room and another from a possible bedroom suite.
And we have no look at this. I have to assume that there's sliding glass doors that lead out to the pool and deck area, or doors or door that doors that could open up to this patio here. Separate area. We know we have a great shot of this back end of this house. There was a small like patio covered area. That might have glass doors or doors. So there's plenty of places. Here's the garage in this area back over here. There's plenty of points of entry for the suspect to either get in or maybe was in already. You know, and we don't know.
We still don't have a definitive point of entry. We don't know how the suspect or suspects, as the FBI has pointed out several times today, the spokesman said, suspects, plural. Okay. They're looking at plural. Okay. We don't know how they got in.
Yeah. Yeah. Shout out to the Gabby Petito Foundation. I'm repping with their hooded sweatshirt. I got it. I believe I bought this at the very first one we went to over at Top Golf in Hauppauge. Remember that, Ed?
Yeah.
That was a great day. So shout out to the Gabby Petito family. If anybody's familiar with the Gabby Petito Foundation, obviously we know what they do and they advocate for the missing. So Ed, you know, with all of this conversation about the sheriff and there was people that agreed or disagreed about the friction within the department. We now know from multiple interviews from Brian Enton, our good friend. He interviewed the retired undersheriff who served 40 years, and some of those 40 years, I think, on the back end was under this current sheriff. I believe his name was Rick, the undersheriff, Gastigar. And then now we hear from Matt Hines, who's the Pima County supervisor. And he spoke not favorably for the sheriff. And then we heard from Sergeant Cross, who is the Pima County Sheriff's Department union representative. He represents all of the members of service in the Pima County Sheriff's Department. And he too has a history way before this case came up with, votes of no confidence and so on and so forth. Ed, I wanted to ask you as an investigator, how important is it to have whoever's in charge of your particular unit or somebody that's running, like the police commissioner, to have the rank and file respect them and have a vote of confidence?
Yeah, it's very difficult to have a leader with a no confidence vote from the troops. Okay, this is not somebody the troops are going to follow if they feel that way about them, right? You remember when we had Mayor de Blasio, and we had several police officers that were killed during his administration, and he went to the funeral of one of the officers.
You got the backs turned to him.
And the officers that were lined up outside the funeral home turned their backs to him because they didn't respect him and didn't have confidence in his leadership and didn't feel that he had law enforcement's back.
Yeah.
Based upon his statements and his actions.
And again, Ed, in a case like this, on the national stage, on the international stage, when you don't have your rank and file, meaning the homicide detectives to the patrol behind you or respecting you, it is difficult for them. They do take the direction, obviously, of whatever the sheriff tells them to do. They got to do it. I have to follow those orders within the letter of the law. If he tells them to do something that's unlawful, different story.
Right.
But let's listen to the union.
Wait, one second, if I may just continue with this point. In my career, I've had leaders that I would go over the wall with anytime, any place. Right. And when I'm say go over the wall, I'm talking, it's a reference to World War I and coming out of a trench and going into no man's land, charging against the enemy. I had Colonel Tucker, United States Army, retired. He was one of my bosses. I would go over the wall with him any day, anytime. Bill Bratton, police commissioner of the NYPD, another man that I had a great deal of respect for. And I would go over the wall. Ray Kelly, I had a lot of respect for Ray Kelly, even though many people, didn't agree with me, but I would. Okay. Yes. And having a leader like that, that led from the front, not from behind. Okay. That was out there with the troops, Esposito, Chief Esposito, Anamone. I mean, I can go through a whole list of people that that I felt confident in their leadership and their abilities, and the fact that if they gave an order, they were given an order based on the law and based on the fact that, you know, we needed to do this and it had to be done.
Right. Yeah. 100%. I had the same thing. Many, and many of those police commissioners that you mentioned, I had a tremendous amount of respect for, especially Bill Bratton from Boston. Great guy. And he was the police commissioner at the time and got us our Glock semi-automatic 9mm handguns. We had the choice of those 3 different weapons, the Smith, the SIG, and the Glock. So yeah, it just is troubling because who does this affect? It affects the victim, who we don't know what happened to her. We don't know the status of Nancy, and it affects the family. Also, it's got to send a message to the community like, holy shit, this entire police department does not have confidence in the leader, the sheriff. So they voted him in 2024, not the police, but I'm saying the community. It's concerning. Let's take a listen. This is the interview with Brian Enton on Brian Enton Investigates. Everyone, make sure you go subscribe over there. I'm sure that everybody here is subscribed already, but if you haven't, check out his channel. This is the Sergeant Cross, the Pima County. He's a Pima County active sergeant, and he's the union president. Let's listen to what he had to say. How many people heard this? Put a 1 in the chat if you heard it. Put a 2 if you never heard this interview. I'm just curious. I always like to pool the chat.
The first thing I wanted to ask you about was just this new FBI statement that I showed you. First of all, apparently there's a lot of gloves that have been found.
Yeah.
What do you make of that? I mean, I guess these gloves are used for all sorts of purposes, it seems.
It is pretty common. It could be from investigators. It could also be, I mean, we have a large amount of homeless that live and camp in the area. We also have, we've experienced a lot of nighttime car break-ins in this area as well. So, I mean, it could be from any one of those things. Hopefully it's related to the Guthrie kidnapping or incident, and they're able to get some DNA out of it, and it breaks the case open. But I understand it was found a couple miles away. Hopefully, as he's driving away, he throws his gloves out the window. Maybe we'll get a lucky break, but there's a lot of possibilities.
It just seems like that would be a dumb thing to do, though. I mean, if you're the suspect,
yeah,
why wouldn't you bury them or hold on to them?
You know? It seems very unusual. He seemed to be very prepared and very careful, at least on the video that was released, and so it would seem very out of character for what we're able to see. But you know, hopefully we'll get lucky.
And you are a sergeant with the Pima County Sheriff's Office and
Yes,
also
sir.
the union president.
Yes, sir.
So you're able to talk to us about some of these issues with the department because you're protected.
Correct.
By which is why we haven't really been able to talk to anyone else within the.
Yeah, I can speak on matters of public concern.
Yeah.
And have some protections from that.
Do you ever get nervous about retaliation?
All the time. I'm sure I'll be drug in to answer questions about this very interview.
Okay.
So,
what is the?
When he asked him if he fears retaliation, he says all the time, I'll certainly be dragged in to answer for this interview, but he doesn't care. So this guy's got balls of steel, and I like him.
Since you have your pulse, I mean, how many deputies did you say are in your union?
So we have a little over 300 out of the about 396 detectives and deputies in the department.
So almost everybody.
Yes, sir.
So what is the feeling right now within the department? I mean, you guys have the eyes of the world on you.
Yeah, it's tough. The deputies, they haven't been impacted as much. The detectives, though, they're working, I mean, some of them are working 8 days straight. Some of them have put in 70, 80-hour weeks for the last couple of weeks. So they're doing everything possible to try and solve this crime. They're working very hard, sacrificing a lot of time with their families. And they're doing everything they can, but it's definitely taken a toll a little bit. You can tell when you speak with them. There's a little bit of burnout. I get that sense. They haven't vocalized that to me, but you can tell it's been a lot. And working 80 hours a week, 70 hours a week, that's a tall order. And
a lot of pressure. I mean, everybody wants to find Nancy, you know?
Certainly, yeah. The whole, it feels like the whole world, or at least the nation, that their eyes are on us. And so there's a lot of pressure internally as well as externally to try and solve this quickly.
Is it true, and I've just heard this from some people around the sheriff's office, that the homicide team is pretty inexperienced right now?
They're pretty new, and that goes for really all the departments. So we have 96 detectives. 45 of them are detective ones, meaning they're pretty new. Inside the unit, I think the person that has the most experience inside that unit has 3 years in homicide. And then some of them are more experienced detectives. They just haven't been in homicide.
And I checked the homicides for the past 3 years, and there wasn't a lot in Tucson.
You know what else is interesting about this interview? Because this sergeant who works for this agency just contradicted somebody else who said there wasn't a lot of nighttime burglaries in these residential areas.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, based upon some of the videos we're seeing, there seems to be a lot of nocturnal activities going on in terms of burglaries.
100%. And I'm so glad that you called that out, because at the end of this, I was going to bring that up. But, you know, at the end of the day, people are saying, oh, the only reason he's talking out is because he's a union rep. He's untouchable. You and I spoke privately about this. We talk multiple times a day. This guy has been transferred by Sheriff Nanos on multiple occasions because of some of the things and the stances that he takes. And he fought him in court and won back the time for his. He got suspended once by Sheriff Nanos. He got transferred once by him to the night shift and made a inconvenience for his family. And he won both of the times, but he's not afraid. And I like that he's able to come out and speak out, because he did this. He was speaking out against the sheriff way before this case. So for those of you who are thinking, oh, well, he's looking for clout, he just wants to get on the stage. No. He's been speaking. He's been very vocal about Sheriff Nanos for a long time. And you could look it up and you could read about it. But this guy's got balls, and I like him.
Right now within the department, I mean, you guys have the eyes of the world on you.
Yeah, it's tough. The deputies, they haven't been impacted as much. The detectives, though, they're working, I mean, some of them are working 8 days straight. Some of them have put in 70, 80-hour weeks for the last couple of weeks. So they're doing everything possible to try and solve this crime. They're working very hard, sacrificing a lot of time with their families. And they're doing everything they can. But it's definitely taken a toll a little bit. You can tell when you speak with them. There's a little bit of burnout. I get that sense. They haven't vocalized that to me, but you can tell it's been a lot. And working 80 hours a week, 70 hours a week, that's a tall order.
And a lot of pressure. I mean, everybody wants to find Nancy, you know?
Certainly, yeah. The whole, it feels like the whole world, or at least the nation, that their eyes are on us. And so there's a lot of pressure internally as well as externally to try and solve this quickly.
Is it true, and I've just heard this from some people around the sheriff's office, that the homicide team is pretty inexperienced right now?
They're pretty new, and that goes for really all the departments. So we have 96 detectives. 45 of them are detective ones, meaning they're pretty new. Inside the unit, I think the person that has the most experience inside that unit has 3 years in homicide. And then some of them are more experienced detectives. They just haven't been in homicide. So there's been a lot of turnover. Another example is that our deputies, we have 195 deputies in patrol. 101 are on probation, meaning they have less than a year. We've experienced several waves of exodus of deputies going to other agencies or retiring early to go work somewhere else. So we're feeling the consequences of that, both on the detective side and in patrol.
Yeah, that's kind of alarming when you think about a case this complicated.
Very.
And we know the sheriff's office is still technically in charge. You'd think there'd be people with decades of experience.
Yes. And if this case happened 10 years ago, we would have a lot more experience to handle it. However, I mean, like I said, we only have 96 detectives compared to something like the FBI. They could,
and 46 of them are new. They have very little experience, and there's not a lot of major crimes that get handled in that area. Although it's a big area that they cover, the Pima County Sheriffs. But this is also troubling to hear, and this rings true. It's almost like Kohlberger-esque, because when the quadruple homicide happened in Moscow, Idaho, the lead detective had 3 years on the job, right?
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, you hear these numbers, and coming from where we come, where we have 8,000 detectives.
8,000.
Yeah, it would, that number in and of itself is bigger than most of the police departments in the United States.
Unbelievable. Hey, everybody, press a 1 in the chat. Make sure you hit the thumbs up and subscribe for a chance to get 10 free memberships. I'm using Ed Wallace's credit card, by the way, again.
Ka-ching.
All right, let's listen in and we'll do the memberships. I'll give everybody more chance to get in there.
Bring thousands of investigators that they could pull from across the country. So we're a medium-sized department, and of course there are limitations that come with that.
Have there been frustrations on the inside about the way this has been handled?
A little bit. They vocalized some of that to me. A lot of it is just some of the decision-making from the top makes them look incompetent, and a lot of those decisions weren't theirs. And so I agree with one of Sheriff Nanos' versions, was that we gave up the scene probably a little too early. And perhaps we could have kept that locked down, maybe with the permission of the family, could have put up crime scene tape after the search warrant was concluded, just with the understanding, hey, we're probably going to have to come back after. Is it okay if we keep people out? And see if the family would have agreed with that and put up that security to keep people away, just to maintain that crime scene as pristine as possible.
What about this relationship with
Ed, how much of a gut punch is that to hear your president of your sheriff's union make that statement? That's gone out. That Brian's video has almost close to 500,000 or more views already, and this is on his personal YouTube channel.
Hey, like I get, as you said, I got a lot of respect for the sergeants for saying what he's saying, but he, this is raw truth here, right? And some people just can't handle the truth. He's telling it as it is. They messed up the initial crime scene investigation here by not protecting that scene.
And I have more respect for him for coming out and say it than the sheriff stumbling and mumbling over his words and not actually owning up to, hey, I messed up. But he's got that Napoleon complex or whatever it is, he has to be, have the last word. Listen, nobody gets it right all the time. We all make mistakes. And and I wouldn't, if I just heard an interview on some random station or whatever, or a random channel, I mean, I would almost not believe this, but I know Brian so well. And I know that he did 3 quality interviews of members of the service of Pima County Sheriffs who have had real issues with this guy before this whole high profile case happened. And that's a real problem.
Let me drop some truth bombs here. Okay. Nobody knows it all. It's just impossible for any one individual or person to know everything, okay, about law enforcement, criminal investigation, forensics. I don't care what the area of expertise is or the discipline. It's physically impossible for anybody to know it all. And when you run across a know-it-all, label them SAF. SAF stands for stay away from, because it's the know-it-alls that get you killed.
And they're the most dangerous. They obviously get you killed.
And then when you have a high-profile case like this, or a high-profile incident, an emergency, okay, where lives are on stake, the person that's screaming, I'm in charge, I want to be in charge, is the person you don't want to be in charge.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Yeah. Nobody in their right mind wants to be in charge of incidents where, life-saving incidents. And so, I mean, the humble people, the people that really know what they're doing, okay, they are the ones that need to be in charge, not the person saying, I want to be in charge. I want to be in charge.
Yeah. Or I have to be first there. I have to have the last say, and that's what I get. That's the real impression I get from this guy is like, it's his way or the highway. And that's a real big problem, especially with a very complex case like this, where you really need everybody to be running on all cylinders. It needs to be a well-oiled machine, and I sense, and from all of this interviews and all the interviews that I've heard Brian Enton conduct, that it's not well-oiled machine, and there's not a lot of happy people that are working for this Pima County Sheriff. That's a big problem, and we can tell you that coming from our backgrounds and our past. So
here's another thing too, with many of our jobs in law enforcement. I knew for many years that our job would say, you don't, as a supervisor, you just have to be a good manager. You don't have to know the work of the people that you're supervising. You just have to be good management. And I totally disagree with that. I totally disagree. If you're going to put a manager into a specific role, okay, your warrants, I'm sending this sergeant to warrants, this lieutenant to warrants. They need to know that work. If you're going to send somebody to crime scene, a sergeant or a lieutenant or whatever the case may be, they need to know that work. Or if they don't know that work, they need to go out and learn that work. Okay, so they understand the nuances of what their detectives are doing.
Agreed. 100%. All right, let's listen to the rest of this, because it goes a little bit further and it gets even worse. So let's listen.
Yeah, that's kind of alarming when you think about a case this complicated.
Very.
And we know the sheriff's office is still technically in charge. And you'd think there'd be people with decades of experience.
Yes. And if this case happened 10 years ago, we would have a lot more experience to handle it. However, I mean, like I said, we only have 96 detectives compared to something like the FBI. They could bring thousands of investigators that they could pull from across the country. So we're a medium-sized department, and of course there are limitations that come with that.
Have there been frustrations on the inside about the way this has been handled?
A little bit. They vocalized some of that to me. A lot of it is just some of the decision-making from the top makes them look incompetent, and a lot of those decisions weren't theirs. And so I agree with one of Sheriff Nanos' versions was that we gave up the scene probably a little too early. And perhaps we could have kept that locked down, maybe with the permission of the family, could have put up crime scene tape after the search warrant was concluded, just with the understanding, hey, we're probably going to have to come back out here. Is it okay if we keep people out? And see if the family would have agreed with that and put up that security to keep people away, just to maintain that crime scene as pristine as possible.
What about this relationship with the FBI? Because we've heard from FBI sources that it hasn't been good. You know, I even heard a couple nights ago there was some critical information that wasn't shared with Ebola that they just didn't tell the FBI about.
Yeah.
And then, you know, this whole issue with the lab.
Yeah.
It's going to Florida, whereas the FBI is, why isn't some of this stuff going to Quantico?
Yeah.
Where does that stem from?
So my opinion is that this comes from 2016. I think when Sheriff Nanos was investigated, when he was interim sheriff back then, I think that investigation caused a lot of the icy relationship that we see today. He holds grudges, and took that as a shot, and I think that he hasn't forgotten it. And I think that's driving some of the decision making that's going on right now.
Do you think the relationship is getting...
Ed, that was the most shocking part of this whole interview. That statement that he just made there, with the FBI, that he's holding a grudge. I mean, did you guys hear that for the folks in the back? I mean, just think about if you're Nancy Guthrie's family, if you're Savannah, looking and listening to this. You know damn well they're listening to this. That has to be so gut punching and so I don't even have the words for it. But oh my God, I got to play that back. This is insane.
They vocalized some of that to me. A lot of it is just some of the decision making from the top makes them look incompetent, and a lot of those decisions weren't theirs. And so I agree with one of Sheriff Nanos' versions was that we gave up the scene probably a little too early. And perhaps we could have kept that locked down, maybe with the permission of the family, could have put up crime scene tape after the search warrant was concluded, just with the understanding, hey, we're probably going to have to come back out here. Is it okay if we keep people out? And see if the family would have agreed with that and put up that security to keep people away, just to just to maintain that crime scene as pristine as possible.
What about this relationship with the FBI? Because we've heard from FBI sources that it hasn't been good.
Yeah.
You know, I even heard a couple nights ago there was some critical information that wasn't shared with Ebola that they just didn't tell the FBI about.
Yeah.
And then, you know, this whole issue with the lab.
Yeah.
It's going to Florida, whereas the FBI is, why isn't some of this stuff going to Quantico?
Yeah.
Where does that stem from?
So my opinion is that this comes from 2016. I think when Sheriff Nanos was investigated, when he was interim sheriff back then, I think that investigation caused a lot of the icy relationship that we see today. He holds grudges, and I took that as a shot, and I think that he hasn't forgotten it. And I think that's driving some of the decision making that's going on right now.
Do you think the relationship is getting better at all, though? Because when we went out to the search warrant, I guess that was on Friday night. You know, the FBI was there for that.
Yeah.
It was and it was your SWAT team, but then it was an FBI search warrant, federal search warrant. I mean, do you think they're trying to mend that now, or what's your sense?
If there's any efforts to mend the fences between them, it's only because of public pressure for him to do so. But I think that this case, what worries me is I'm worried that this case has become an ego case for him, and that this is our chance to win.
He's worried that this case has become an ego case for Sheriff Nanos. That is disturbing. And I mean, in my opinion, World News Tonight should have this interview on. David Muir should be playing this interview and saying what is going on in the Nancy Guthrie abduction investigation.
I'd like to see what the turnover rate in the deputies and the sheriffs, deputy sheriffs rather, the detectives and sergeants and so forth are in this agency.
I mean, this actually has got me sick to my stomach listening to this back. I listened to it once and I said, I got to play this for everybody. Let us know what you think in the chat about this. This is the rank and file. This guy knows the heartbeat of his members. He's not just, you know, there to protect his union, the members, as the union president. He's a sergeant. He's an active sergeant working within that department. He knows what's going on. He does not stand. There is no upside to him for telling a lie here and giving us a sack of bullshit. He's not lying. This is what's going on. And now I'm 100% convinced. Like in the beginning, on day one, when I saw Sheriff Nanos up at the podium, Ed, at the press conference, I said to everybody, give him a little grace. He's just not a good talker. You know, he's never had a case this big. And now, fast forward to day 16, this is unbelievable. This is unbelievable.
If there's any efforts to mend the fences between them, it's only because of public pressure for him to do so. But I think that this case, what worries me is I'm worried that this case has become an ego case for him, and that this is our chance to one-up the FBI or to show that we're as good as the FBI. And I'm not sure that should be driving the decision-making. We have very capable, hardworking detectives. However, it's like I said before, we're a medium-sized agency. We just simply don't have the manpower, the assets, the funding that something like the FBI could bring to bear.
What happened with, I've heard some rumblings about the search plane and the pilot, I think, or do you know much about that situation?
Yes, sir. It was a pilot / TFD, the tactical flight deputy. So our plane has two people in it. It's the pilot and the person behind him who is operating the high definition cameras, the FLIR, all that. And so there was a pilot / TFD who was normally assigned to work that day with a pilot. However, he was transferred the week before, I believe on January 25th. And he was transferred back to patrol, and as a result of that, he was not replaced. And so as a result of that, the plane was not able to be used immediately. From what I understand from people who worked that day, the helicopter was initially used because there was a pilot at the hangar and a helicopter pilot, so they jumped in the helicopter and responded. And that has some benefit. When you fly a helicopter around a missing person, oftentimes people, they go out of their house to go, what's going on? Why is their helicopter flying so low around the neighborhood? And so when you get people out of their houses, sometimes they'll see a disoriented elderly person or someone in need, a small child, and they'll call 911. However, eventually they called the TFD out that day, and then they flew back to the hangar, I understand, and then got the plane out of the hangar and got it overhead. But that took 2 or 3 hours from what I understand.
Ed, he anger transferred the TFD, the guy who does all the flare and all of the special equipment behind the pilot. You can't send the helicopter up with just the pilot. I mean, they still did, but that's dangerous.
Yeah, these are bad decisions that are being made by uneducated people that don't know the work, as I said earlier. Yeah, and I heard him say the turnover rate is high, but I want to know what the actual numbers are, and are the people leaving on their own, or is this sheriff firing people left and right? Because in the sheriff's office, you typically don't have the civil service protections you have, say, in a local city or county police agency, and where you have those civil service protections. And you serve at the will of the sheriff, and the sheriff can fire you without cause. Wow. So I really want to know what the hell is going on here, because it sounds like a very hostile work environment.
I got to say, I don't enjoy hearing this because it makes me sick.
No, it does.
I'd rather not be reporting on this, but this is a part of the story, and we are from that field. And when I hear this and I see this, it makes it all come full circle and say, wait a minute, this is all making sense. This guy is this is a Barney Fife. Sheriff Nanos is Barney Fife. I mean, wait a minute. Barney Fife does a better job than him.
So did the sheriff have an issue? You said the person was transferred out.
Yes, sir.
Do you know why?
There's a minor demeanor complaints with the pilot. I think he'd been around 17 years, and there's some demeanor complaints in behavior with his interactions with some other people inside the unit that, in my opinion, could have been handled a little differently. He received informal discipline and then was transferred. I think that informal discipline and perhaps a special observation probation would have been more appropriate and would have kept that asset, which is that plane is the most valuable law enforcement asset in southern Arizona. And if it moved to Phoenix, it would be the most valuable asset in Phoenix. It's that good.
Yeah, I've seen it. It has the monitors in the back. It's fantastic. It's impressive. I saw some pictures of it.
Yeah. And all the local agencies around us, whenever it's available, they want to use it for any of their cases. It's.
Ed, remember we had that retired NYPD helicopter pilot on with us a long time ago? Do you remember him?
Yeah.
He talked about that rescue he did at upstate New York at the Marine Academy. The cadets were on the side.
Camp Smith.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to reach out to him just to get his, not for a show, but I'm going to reach back out to him because I know he flies the owner of the jets now on his personal helicopter. Mm-hmm. But I'd like to let him listen to this a little bit and get his thoughts on it and then relay it back to the troops here, back to everybody. Let me know if you'd be interested in hearing from a retired NYPD aviation unit helicopter pilot who would probably have a lot to say about this. But yeah, so I'm going to do that. I just got the idea now.
Extremely valuable. And so I feel like handling that a little bit differently would have kept that plane ready and addressed the problem with the employee. But that decision was made differently.
On the 25th.
So that deputy is a deputy, yeah?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he had 17 years of experience
flying
with that kind of work.
Yes, sir.
And he hasn't been able to work this case?
Correct. And he started as a TFD that we then made into a pilot. So he had 17 years in the air unit, I should clarify. Okay. But he'd been a long-time pilot, was a long-time TFD, and was very...
Transferred to patrol on January 25th, just 5-6 days before this critical incident happened. Unfreaking real.
Very good at his job.
So he could be helpful right now.
Yes. That day, they would have been up quickly, and perhaps the searchers, because when this first came out, we initially believed that it was an elderly person who may have bumped their head or something and walked away. And so having that plane up with its capabilities would have allowed the search and rescue team to, in my opinion, more quickly realize that she's not in the area. And maybe we need to start looking somewhere else and thinking about this differently, especially considering the blood drops.
Tell me a little bit I read about a no confidence vote for the sheriff.
Yes,
when was that?
That was, if my memory serves me correctly, it was in 2024, early 2024, I believe. And we took an anonymous no confidence vote or confidence vote, and it returned, except for one vote, it was unanimous no confidence in Sheriff Nanos.
Ed, we've been around many union sanctioned votes, right, Ed?
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear what he just said?
Yeah, it was one vote for him, the rest of them against him.
And I even think he goes as far as saying the person who didn't vote for the no confidence just misunderstood the vote or just didn't know how to vote. The whole department in 2024 had a vote of no confidence for Sheriff Nanos. Wow. That is, hold on a second.
Pardon my French, but you're an
All right.
Team to, in my opinion, more quickly realize that she's not in the area, and maybe we need to start looking somewhere else and thinking about this differently, especially considering the blood drops.
Tell me a little bit about, I read about a no confidence vote for the sheriff.
Yes, sir.
When was that?
That was, if my memory serves me correctly, it was in 2024, early 2024, I believe. And we took an anonymous no confidence vote or confidence vote, and it returned, except for one vote, it was unanimous no confidence in Sheriff Nanos. And that was done to kind of try and get the word out to the public, to the voting public in Pima County, that we've got some real issues in this department.
And that's so everyone except for one person in the union said no confidence.
Yes, sir. And my opinion is he probably didn't understand the vote and maybe made a mistake.
So what are the, I mean, so why don't they like him?
Well, I think former Chief Deputy Castigar kind of gave you some insight into the issues going on with Sheriff Nanos. He has an ego that's difficult to describe without sounding hyperbolic, and it drives a lot of his decision making. Wow. He's very retaliatory, and their favorite version of retaliation is through transfers, which has impacted nearly every unit in this department and decreased our overall readiness, in my opinion. Nearly every unit, the experience and expertise that was there was transferred out for whatever reason, and there are real impacts to that, and it lowered morale, and so there was a lot of hope that in the election in 2024 that we would have a change at leadership, and when that didn't come to pass, very close, but when it didn't come to pass, that's when we started seeing these mass exodus of deputies and detectives.
How close was it?
471 votes.
So he lost by 400. He won by 471 votes.
Yeah, 471, 481, less than 500.
Okay.
It was so close it had to have a mandatory recall per the Arizona state law.
And you mentioned the transfers, and you said it was like disciplinary.
By the way, this interview is being held right outside of Sheriff Nanos's office. The Pima County Sheriff's is this building right here behind. So again, I keep saying it, but this guy's got balls of steel, and he's not afraid to speak the truth.
This is very disheartening. I mean, I'm not happy about this at all. Hearing this kind of information from this sergeant.
Yeah, and it all makes sense now that the FBI there was friction there. This guy did not welcome them with open arms. He has disdain for them. That dates all the way back to 2016, ladies and gentlemen. This didn't happen with Nancy Guthrie's case. This has been ongoing in the Pima County Sheriff's Department, and we would never hear about it if this case didn't happen.
Ron, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't the sheriff try to fire this guy and he won in court?
He did. He transferred him, and then he suspended him, and he tried to terminate him, but he fought it, and he won. I looked it up today. I talked to you about it today.
Mm-hmm. Discipline by transfer. Is that what happened to you?
Oh, yes, sir. So when I became president in 2023 of our union, I initially decided, hey, let's take a morale poll. And so we did a morale poll. It came back pretty low, and it came back with some comments. And I thought that those comments would be beneficial to someone in a position of leadership. So I quietly compiled them on a professional letter and sent them to Sheriff Nanos, just put it in his basket, and he could have thrown it away. However, he took exception to that and responded by transferring me to a position to hurt my family. That was confirmed to me later by former Chief Deputy Castigar.
What do you mean to hurt your family?
So I was on midnights because I had small children and my wife worked during the day. They knew that. And about 7 months before, one of his chiefs threatened me to move me off midnights, and I explicitly reminded them that I'm on midnights for my family. But when I sent that letter, they responded by transferring me to a day shift so that I would not have that time with my children.
And did you get transferred to like an office job at that time, or?
Yes, sir.
So you don't even, how much experience do you have?
This will be my 26th year. I am the second most senior sergeant in the department.
But you're not out on the street.
No. He has me taking calls, phone reports. So if your garden hose gets stolen and you want to make a phone report, I'm handling those currently.
Is that feel demeaning? I mean, with all the experience you have?
I'm the first and only sergeant in the history of our department ever working that position. It's normally reserved for injured deputies so they can still work while they're recovering from their injuries.
So I've covered, I've interviewed unions before, like with a lot of different things. And a lot of times the unions don't like the boss.
Yes, sir.
Or it's about pay.
Yes, sir.
So that's not uncommon, but is this different, do you think, than other places where, because the unions always seem to have some kind of issue. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I agree. And oftentimes you do hear of unions. They're always lobbying for increased pay. And certainly we lobby for that as well. But no one came to the Pima County Sheriff's Department because they were going to get paid the most. However, I have a theory that you can either pay your employees poorly or treat them poorly, but you can't do both and expect them to stick around. And that's where we're at. And our pushback against leadership inside this department, I believe, is a large reason why we've grown so quickly. Like I said, we started in 2023 from nothing, and we're already now representing nearly the entire commission side of the department.
The other thing I found covering sheriff's offices around the country is, sheriffs have a lot of power. I mean, they're elected.
Certainly.
So sometimes, or many times, the deputies love the sheriff. It's like the opposite of what you're saying.
Yes.
And even though maybe they don't get paid as much as they should or as much as they want, like the sheriffs have their back.
Let me just say, no police, for the most part, well, I can't say no, but most police do not take the job to become rich. We take the job because we want to protect and serve. We want to do the job and help get the bad people off the street and help people in times of need. So this is very valid. Not many people go into the police business to become rich. That's for sure.
Yes.
And it's different than working for a police department where there's a city council and they almost, the sheriff really protects the deputies.
Yes, sir.
But I guess that's not the case here.
No, and it's pretty unusual.
But it is around here, right? I mean, I've interviewed some other sheriffs. It seems like other sheriffs are really liked.
Yes, sir. And the counties that are next to us, their sheriffs are very popular. Pinal County is a great example. They're directly to our north, and their deputies adore their sheriff, from my understanding. Ours is different because of how he runs the department and the retaliation that they do to the deputies that speak up or even perceived to be against Nanos, or even he heard them say something against him. Because of that, we had a couple dozen of them protest with me against the sheriff during the last race. And I am unaware of any other instance where deputies protested against their sheriff for an election race. But it happened last time. But it wasn't without risk and fear. A lot of those guys did it while wearing masks just to protect themselves from retaliation.
Yeah, that's unusual, huh?
It is. The situation inside this department, I would describe as very unusual.
So the whole world is watching now because of Nancy Guthrie.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think all of these issues that you've described have had an impact on the investigation?
100%. 100%. The experience level inside our CID, like I said, they're hardworking people, but everybody needs mentors. I cannot imagine starting as a new deputy or when I was in as a detective and not having mentors to help me out. You need that. They make you better. And when you have questions or when you have a high profile case, they're the ones that you want to go to. But from what I understand and what I'm being told, there's not a lot of that right now. Like I said, we're a very young department. 45% of our commissioned deputies and detectives have less than 5 years on. We're very young.
Wow.
Because of this turnover, and it's having a real impact. And when we need that expertise, that seniority the most during high profile incidents like this, they're simply not there. So I believe it is having an impact.
Couldn't the sheriff have said in the beginning, look, this is a complicated case? Even the FBI experts around the country have said, we've never even seen anything like this. I mean, they've never seen a kidnapping like this. Couldn't he have said, we're going to hand this over to the FBI because like this needs another level of expertise? I don't think that would have made him look bad.
No,
I think they could have still helped and assisted and been a part of it.
I agree. I think the right decision, and there's also different aspects of this as well. By deciding early to turn this over to the FBI and us take a supportive role to them, I think it would have been the best decision, in my opinion, for the Guthrie family, but also for our detectives and Pima County citizens. Like, from what I understand, the entirety of CID is being tasked with helping on this case. All of them. They still have other cases that aren't being worked as well as they could be. And the bad guys aren't giving us a break because we're working this case, hoping to find Nancy. The calls and the crimes are still coming in. They're still happening. So these cases are getting put on the back burner from what they otherwise would be if this was turned over to the FBI, who could use their massive assets, resources, and personnel to work it with us in an assisting role. And then we could also then go back to a normal order of business to some extent and work some of these other cases that are happening in Pima County.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Hey, Ron.
This is shocking and compelling. I'm done with it.
I was going to say, I can't take any more of this, man. It's giving me an anxiety attack.
I know, but I didn't want to just play a little piece of it because I felt so strongly that our listening audience and anyone who's following this case needs to know, because again, Brian Enton has his own YouTube channel, and this video included CC Moore, which I wanted to play, but we won't have time to play it. This guy breaks down the current situation that's going on. And he's basically saying that crimes are still happening and all of their resources are on this case. So what's happening with us when we would have a funeral or something where the whole precinct would be shut down, we'd have backfill from all the other troops that we had in the NYPD. They don't have that here. And this guy really breaks it down. Unbelievable. This is, like devastating to hear this with this case. And Brian just uploaded this video today. I only saw it this afternoon, and that's why I said I want to make most of this live stream about that. Ed, where does this put us? The FBI, now we know there's confirmed friction between the sheriff and there's bosses with the FBI. So the FBI has a field office. They have somebody who's there commanding, at their command center that's making decisions on personnel and what to do. How does this affect it when you have a sheriff like this?
Well, again, if going into this investigation that the troops have a vote of no confidence against the leadership, it doesn't bode well. All right. And you're seeing the effects of that leadership in the way investigation is being conducted. Okay. Yeah. The mistakes, these are unforced errors. Okay. These are unforced errors. You don't take the time, effort, and money to train somebody and give them an expertise in a specific discipline, okay, only to bounce them out over some, I don't know if it was a major incident or a minor incident or whatever it was, but you bounce them out and put them to patrol. You're talking about a licensed professional, a licensed pilot, okay, in that one instance. And then you have a sergeant answering phones, that, has a wealth of knowledge and experience in answering phones that are typically answered by, injured officers while they're recuperating. Okay. Who does that? Who does that? And then now you understand why you have this. You have incompetency. You have these mistakes that are being made. You have 16 gloves strewn throughout a crime scene. Now I understand what the hell is going on here.
Yeah, and it's really troubling. And like you said, Ed, it gave me anxiety to hear that sergeant talk about the current situation within the Pima County Sheriff's Department. This is the department that is putting their chest bump out because of the sheriff, and us, we're handling this. Like he said, if we could just be support, Like when we showed those guys holding up, the sheriffs holding up the yellow tarp on Friday night when they did that search of the back of the Range Rover.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they should be doing. Controlling traffic, controlling any type of crowds, like, the people that are coming and trying to film, holding them back. That's what they're supposed to do, So it's really troubling. And on this video, I'm not going to play it all. I'm not going to play it, but in this video right here on News Nation, I'll link it in the description. Basically, they interviewed the town, what did I say? Matt Hine, Pima County supervisor. This guy right here. And he reiterates, not quite as strongly as what this sergeant just reiterated for everybody about the current condition, but he talked about the investigation and the glove and, the processing and everything. And this might be something, it's only 4 minutes and 20 seconds. This might be something that you guys would want to go and watch because it's equally as troubling because it confirms even more of what this sergeant we just heard talk for 15 minutes. This guy in 4 minutes confirmed everything that the sergeant said, and it was uploaded today. And this is the Pima County supervisor. So he's not even in law enforcement. He's just, a civilian employee, and he spoke out against the sheriff. Unbelievable. I don't know. Is there anybody here? Is there anybody here from this Pima County area? If you're watching the replay, send me a message on judyron.com. I'd like to hear your thoughts about it. Ed, let's wrap it up by saying day 16, not a lot happening, but the news made it into a lot. We're waiting for the results of the DNA, perhaps from, if they get any, from that glove discarded almost 2 miles away from Nancy Guthrie's house. And what else? Recap, Ed, before we wrap it up.
Just waiting on that DNA to get into CODIS. All right. I don't know why it's taken so long to get the QA/QC finished and to have the profile sent over to the FBI. Well, again, the private lab can't do that. They have to send the profile to the sheriff's office, and then the sheriff's office has to give the profile to the FBI to enter it into CODIS.
Right. I don't, a lot of our friends in the chat, we have tons of subscribers and channel members. They're talking about, what about the new ransom letter? I don't really, and this is just me, don't shoot the messenger here. I don't really put much credence in or anything into those letters because I feel like it's just somebody messing with the Guthrie family trying to get money. I don't feel like those letters or anybody that legitimately has Nancy Guthrie and that they're going to return her safe and sound. She's going to have her hair done and a mani-pedi done, and she's going to be all returned nice and safe and sound. So the TMZ letters, I don't really give it much. I know that the FBI looks at it. They look at everything. But what do you think about that? All these multiple letters. New one came in today. Supposedly out of the country. She's out of the country, or this.
Yeah, well, the new one today is the same guy from the other day who says, "I know where, I know who did this, and if you give me 1 Bitcoin, I'll do this. So I'll tell you who did it, and I need the Bitcoin because if I do this, I'm going to be the world's biggest rat."
Yeah,
or whatever the case may be.
The TMZ is like the National Enquirer.
Right.
Those of you who are dated and older like me, do you remember the National Enquirer? That's how I look at that TMZ. It's just all about shock and awe, and they're the biggest drama channel that I've ever seen on TV, and I don't give it any credence. I'll never watch that. If that my wife goes and clicks past it, I was like, just keep going. I don't want to see it, and she doesn't either. So let us know what you think. TMZ is garbage, gossip, trash, and it's not helping this investigation. So if they really wanted to do the right thing, they would get those letters in and not talk about it and and make entertainment out of it. And out of respect for the Guthrie family, they would just send it to the FBI and say, here, do what you want with this. They shouldn't be making hours and hours worth of content about these letters, but they do, It is what it is. All right, guys, on behalf of Crime Time with Judy, Ron, and Ed Wallace, this is our commitment to give you guys updates every day. I don't know if we'll be able to do it every day, but I do believe that if there's something that's important and pressing, Ed Wallace is like eagle eyes on this thing. Ed, you see that the bald eagle that they let go at the football games, and that's Ed Wallace. He is on this, and I'm going to tell you, he calls me a lot of times like, "What's up, Ron?" And I'm like, "Ed, you called me. You tell me what's up." And then he gives me the whole, everything, the rap. So Ed is on it. I'm on it. I'm retired now. I'm feeling better, but I'm just going to ask one thing. February 26th, which is coming up soon, I'm going for another PET scan to recheck for my lymphoma reoccurrences and also for the 2 lesions I have on my spine. Please, I'm just asking you guys to pray for me for a good result. Last time I went and got checked, I found out I have thyroid cancer. But what they want to do with that thyroid cancer is just watch it, active surveillance. So I'm asking just for prayers, and I don't ask for much here. I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking for anything like that. Just if you pray or if you don't pray, just think of good thoughts for the 26th, which is coming up soon. 10 short days. I'll be at Sloan Kettering Cancer Center getting a PET scan and my blood drawn. And I'm hoping that in a day or 2 after that, they don't come back with anything additional, because it just seems like it never ends with me. I'm 18 months with just going through the gigs here. So thank you so much for everybody for praying for me. Sending prayers, strength, and positive vibes to the investigators from both Pima County and the FBI, also the community in that generalized area, and the family, most importantly. So hold on to hope, and we'll see what happens. Ed, you always had something to say at the end of these things. You got it.
Thanks, folks, for being here with us in this hour, in a little more than an hour. Thanks for sharing your valuable time with us and for spreading the word about us. Please be safe. Please be prepared and watch your 6.
Amen to that, my brother. Good night from New York City, and we'll see you soon. Peace and love.